shooting script where we had changed it quite a bit. We have one mention of bronies in it. We cleaned it up a lot. We're essentially doing what we intend to do, which is say thank you. But then something happened after we got done with this script. Next, please. The other thing that happened about this time is we had decided we wanted to pick a charity because we wanted to involve a charity in it. That was one of the big, strong messages that the forums gave, was that we have to have a charitable purpose for this, for all this money we collected. So we picked Toys for Tots, and it took a while. And in fact, if you want to know that Hasbro and the Hub were in on this, Hasbro vouched to us, to Toys for Tots, and Greg Heaney, VP of Marketing for the Hub, called Toys for Tots to vouch for us, to say that we were the real deal. And so then Toys for Tots allowed us to. Now, let me tell you when to go to the next slide. Next slide. So the other thing that happened is I got this call, and Daniel has the date on the note on the slide here. I don't have it in front of me, but it was about midway through the Indiegogo campaign, where I got this call from Greg Heaney, again, VP of Marketing for the Hub, who I had never talked to before, saying, "Hi, would you be available tomorrow, Wednesday at 7:15 to take a call from Margaret Loesch, who is the president of the Hub?" And I thought, and I looked through my address book, I said, yeah, I think I can take that. Now, for those of you who don't know who Margaret Loesch is, she was the executive producer of My Little Pony Friends. Next. She was the executive producer on Gem. Next. She was the executive producer on G.I. Joe. She was the executive producer on Transformers. She was the executive producer on Muppet Babies. She was the executive producer on the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries. She was the executive producer on Dungeons and Dragons. She was the executive producer on Super Friends. She was the executive producer on Pac-Man. She was the executive producer on The Smurfs. That's it. Don't go any farther. Okay, so if you grew up in the 80s, she owns your childhood. Yes, I was going to listen to Margaret, and they spent about the first half of this is the pattern, by the way, they've called me twice, and they start with half of the conversation is how great your doing is and how much they appreciate it and all that, and oh, by the way. And the oh, by the way in this case was two things, if you can go to the next slide. The first thing is they asked us to, click once, thank you, to change Hi, We're Bronies to Hi, We're Fans of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, because they wanted the ad to be more inclusive of the whole fan base. And by the way, all these changes were publicly presented to the forum, and they went for them. They thought they made the ad better, and I agree that makes it better. And the other thing is, they said, more than just Lauren Faust created the show. And that's true. She was the creator in the sense that she was the story runner. But if you go ask the writers and folks, there were a lot of people, including her husband, including a lot of other people who were involved in the germinal process of ponies. So they said, could you change it to just the creators? And frankly, we all knew who the creators are. Anybody who would care enough to know who Lauren Faust is knows who the creators are. So we didn't have a problem with that. Anyway, we still mentioned bronies. It's in the back there. Really, let me tell you when to go to the next slide. I don't know how you did that. You hit help. All right, over, down, up, click. I think you can just hit space. Thank you. Go back. Thank you. So we did put bronies in at the end there. Because we weren't going to take bronies out entirely from the ad. But we thought that this made the ad better, so we had no trouble with it. The other thing you'll notice we've added at the bottom is a mention for Toys for Tots, and it was originally just going to be a title card, but then we realized later you can't read that much information. So if you see the final ad, it's a combination of the title card and a voiceover, which I'll talk about when we get to that. So now you can go to the next slide, please. So why did we pick who we did? The big criticisms we got about the ad, as far as the spokesponies were, why was it so white? Why was it so female? Why was it so military? Why weren't there any neckbeards? And the answer is we had to take what we were given. We only got a total of, I believe, 6 video submissions for the ad, which shocked the heck out of me, because I thought we would get a lot more people. But in hindsight, I'm not as surprised as I was then. Next slide. The reality was that there were a lot of technical hurdles he had to go over. We wanted HD video, we wanted decent lighting, we wanted decent sound. We were going to Google the heck out of you, and we were going to run a background check on you, and we were going to make sure that you had never done anything evil in your life, because that's what you got to do when you're publicly putting people out as models of a group. And in fact, there's one person who, for nothing bad they did, but just something that I think would have failed the parent of a 6-year-old test, we had to decline after the fact. So that was a filtering process. And then there was a lot of negative publicity from the Reddit and 4chan, and just in general all this churn about, oh my God, it's going to be awful, and everyone involved with it is going to be a laughing stock. So I think all those caused it to drive down the numbers. Also, remember the fandom is about 85% introvert, and you're asking introverts to put themselves on camera. Now, introvert doesn't necessarily mean shy, but it is going to drive the numbers down. So, next slide. We also did, of those, we had to reject about half because they had crappy audio. We had one guy who was great. He was in front of a plane. He's a Civil Air Patrol guy. He's talking about it, and the wind is blowing like nobody's business, and he doesn't have a windshield on his bike, and it sounds like, you know, we're here at Hurricane Dorothy. Got a couple with bad video. One guy who we would have loved to take, especially since he was not a Caucasian, was him and his parent, just balked at the background check, and not again because I think they were, you know, axe murderers. I think they just had privacy concern, because we're asking for social security numbers and such, and from the kids. And one guy who just submitted just clearly was like, he was being the neckbeard guy, but he was doing it like, hi, I'm a fan of my, you know, I said, weren't gonna take it. So who were we left with afterward? Mariana, who was the Canterlot Garden who gave us the $500 you get to pick who goes on it person, and I wouldn't have picked anybody else had to be given choice. He was just awesome for everyone who saw the ad. Next, we had Sean down in Texas, and we had Jeremy in Okinawa, right? So it could have been worse. We were 2 out of 3 soldiers when we had our first cut. So we had 6 speaking parts, and we only had 3 parts, so we were in trouble. About mid-May, I started to panic because we only had half the people we needed, and we were going for what we thought was a late September air date. Because those of you who think the hub tells us anything special, we had no idea when it was going to air either, and we were the advertiser. Next slide. All right, so we figured out we had to go shoot ourselves. We had to find people local in our area, which was Boston, and we had to find them quickly. Oh, the other request we'd gotten from Margaret Loesch was, can you put someone from the core demographic in the ad? You know, can you put a kid in the ad? And we had already planned to do it, so we said sure, but now we didn't have a kid. So we started casting our nets in the Boston area. We had already been contacted by one group of people. If you go to the next slide. We had to go and shoot it ourselves. And I don't have professional video production equipment personally in my things, but it turns out that an iPhone 5 shoots really good HD if you give it enough light. I had a decent mic, and with a little duct tape and a broom and a gooseneck mic, you can make a boom mic that works really well. And that had actually had an XLR to mini adapter so it could go into the iPhone, and had a decent tripod and a tripod mod for an iPhone. So we were able to go, you know, we weren't going to be doing any dolly shots or anything like that, so we were able to go locally. And the 3 groups we dealt with locally were Nick and his mother, who are the father, or the mother's son pair you see in the ad, and Tally here, who I can now actually have someone else speak for a second. Tell us about filming day at Wellesley.
So I wasn't really out to my boss about being in My Little Pony, so we did, like, he knew I was a tremendous nerd. I think I'd worn the Doctor Who shirt, because, you know, he was like a snarky British man, and he was a Doctor Who fan, but I didn't necessarily want to be like, you know, I'm bringing my Little Pony friends over to work and whatnot. So we did it on a weekend. and I work just like in a small lab. It'd been so funny, like we'd started talking about this at a like New York meetup where he was like, wait, you're a scientist? And I'm like, yeah, I work in a research lab. And he's like, why haven't you submitted to the ad? I'm like, oh, I don't have a camera. He's like, I have a camera. When can I come over? And so like I got on my lab coat and everything. I work in a muscle physiology lab, so we didn't have a lot of good showy stuff that would be okay to show kids on TV. I was like, I have a freezer full of dead things. I have all these leeches. I have a muscle lever. It's really cool, but it doesn't look really cool. And so we were just like, you know, like, okay, we wanted to make it clear, like, you know, like this is a research lab. And we got out like the hot plate, the spinner, and a beaker, and you couldn't see it very well. So I took like in the like expiration bin like of stuff to dispose of, because like everything expires whether it's good or bad. Sterile saline expires and it's salt water. I had some like blue colored acid that's used for just calibrating pH meters, and I was like, put this in here. So the spinning blue beaker, and it was a lot of fun. But it was just sort of like, I'm at my workplace filming a My Little Pony commercial. This feels strange. This is very strange.
It was really, it was at Wellesley College, and the place was totally deserted on a Saturday. And it was like, you know, there were literally leeches floating around in a tank in there. It was, we were in a leech lab. But so the other people we shot were Nick and her mom, and then we needed a 6-year-old. And you can't just kind of put an ad out, wanted, or drive around with a white van that says, you know, free ponies to get a 6-year-old. So it turned out that a friend of mine who I had gotten into doing pony plushies had a friend, so this was literally the friend of a friend, who had a 6-year-old daughter who watched the show. And we went over on I think a Saturday, and this was anyone's ever, you know when they say don't work with animals and children? She was the most terminally shy 6-year-old girl when we started that you ever have seen. She was like, you know, you want to be in a commercial, dear, don't you? Hiding behind the mother. And then she said, well, you can wear your pretty party princess dress or whatever, or your pretty dress. And she, can I wear it tomorrow too? Yeah. Okay. And then we got, if you've seen the outtakes, you can see she was a lot of fun to work with. You know, she was 6 years old, so getting her to remember honesty and generosity and loyalty and things. We went with fudge after a while for one of them, because we knew what word we wanted her to say, and it was the word before that one, so we just needed her to get the rhythm right. And so we finally had all of our people in the can. Next. The problem was that some of the audio that had come in was a little rough. It wasn't bad, but it was tinny or had been shot in a room, so you got this effect. Some of the video wasn't the best in the world, so we were going to need some post-projection magic. And we got that from two people. We got that from a gentleman by the name of Dan, who contacted me locally. He lived in Derry, the area we're in. And next one, please. And we spent I'll tell you how to play that in a second. We spent a day at the Derry Public Library in a closed carrel with a copy of After Effects on my laptop, and this guy was a freaking miracle runner. So I'm going to show you, this is the version of the ad we had at the time. It's got scratched music because the music hadn't come in yet. So you'll hear what my kind of, oh my God, if I don't get any good music, this is the piece of music I bought for $5 music. And what you're gonna see is before and afters of before and after After Effect. And some of them are subtle, but some of them just really pop out. So you should see a play button really small there.
We're fans of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and we'd like to say thanks.
Thank you to Hasbro and the Hub for creating such a fantastic show.
Thanks to DHX Media and all the animators for making it so beautiful to watch.
To the voice actors and singers for bringing the characters to life.
To the composers for making such wonderful music.
And to the creators of the show and the writers for bringing a little more honesty,
Loyalty,
Laughter.
Generosity,
Kindness,
and magic into the world, for kids and bronies alike.
Show your appreciation for the show by donating toys this holiday season.
Okay, some of those are subtle, but I want to show two in specific, so if you can get to the next slide. Okay, this is Sean. Sean is totally lost in the background in this image because everything is in pretty much the same focus plane because it was shot from pretty far away. He's also kind of washed out. So what Dan did is he blurred the background around him. He also, by the way, steadied it because the camera was moving. So he did motion tracking and steadied it down so that it looked like it was a fixed point camera. But the one that I'm most proud of that he worked on, if you go to the next one, other than that end plate he did for Toys for Tots, which was amazing. So what Jeremy gave us was totally blown out in the back. He was in shadow, and it was literally just white. There was no detail there. So Dan said, get me a color, get me a cloud plate. Get me just a photo of clouds. So I bought a photo of clouds off the net, and if you click, and he dropped in the background there, a cloud plate. So everything has basically been rotoscoped out and replaced with clouds. He also brought out the detail of his face. So that cloud view there does not exist anywhere but on a photo somewhere. And if Jeremy ever saw this, like, it wasn't like that day. And this is why you should never trust anything you see on video. So next. So the other thing that happened is William Anderson took, if you listen to the long YouTube version of the ad, you can hear some of the other submissions I got. I had one very knowledgeable fan who's in the industry tell me, oh God, only send him like your top 2 or 3 choices for songs. He's gonna be too busy. And Anderson said, send me everything. So I sent him 23 submissions, most of which were really good, and he picked what he thought the best one was, and then he worked with Arturo Fonseca, who was our winner, to do this. So if you click on the left speaker, you can hear, click on the play. This is what got submitted. This is what it was like after he did the post on it. It's the same song. He just made it better. Right? But the other thing he did for us is our audio was still pretty rough. As you can kind of hear in that rough cut of the ad, he went and he re-EQ'd and did some filtering on the entire, he did the final mastered audio track for the ad for us. So he is best pony of many in my book. Next slide. Okay, so we still had some work to do. We had to get a letter from Toys for Tots saying, yes, honest to God, you can use our name in the ad. We had to get letters from all the soldiers saying we hadn't filmed it on military property. We had to get approval from Hub Standards and Practices. We had to get approval from Hasbro because we were using their trademark names. So if anybody thinks that Hasbro wasn't in this up to their gills, Hasbro was in this up to their gills. Next. So then we were ready to air, except we didn't know when it was going to air. We finally got sick enough of waiting that we showed it at Canterlot Gardens, just because it was the con after it was done, but closest to when we thought the real air date is. But literally, we didn't know until about a week. You know, we literally found out when everyone found out when season premiere was going to be, because we were backed up the week before season premiere up until the episode of Pound Puppies right before season premiere. We couldn't show it in Ponies because of FTC regs about advertising in the same show. So if you go to the next slide, this is what actually aired on, Daniel, you got to read the bottom of the slide for me. Right, so Monday at 9 o'clock, the week before Ponies. Like it or not, for those who were critics of it, we made history. We were the first people ever to air a fan ad on a national broadcast network. And for those of you who don't remember, it looked like this.
We're fans of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and we'd like to say thanks.
Thank you to Hasbro and the Hub for creating such a fantastic show.
Thanks to DHX Media and all the animators for making it so beautiful to watch.
To the voice actors and singers for bringing the characters to life.
To the composers for making such wonderful music.
And to the creators of the show and the writers for bringing a little more honesty,
Loyalty.
Laughter.
Generosity.
Kindness
And magic into the world, for kids and bronies alike.
Show your appreciation for the show by donating toys this holiday season.
And I will publicly say what a lot of you know, and I know there's some controversy about this person, but I did not know at the time, but I'm still glad we use him. That's Naked Mole Rat doing Derpy's voice at the end of the ad, who was at the time the fan voice of Derpy. So we just thought it was good to get Derpy in the ad somehow. So let's talk about the aftermath. Part of the reason this didn't get as much publicity as it might have, next slide, is that it was election week. And oddly enough, the news media had bigger fish to fry than a pony had that week. But we did get some, first of all, we got, if you go look, we turned the YouTube comments off because YouTube is the open sewer of the internet as far as comments go, and I got tired of seeing the word faggot. But, we got 1,300 plus to 250 odd minus, and to put it in perspective, if you go to the next slide, Justin Bieber is 3-1 against. So I think we did better than Justin Bieber, so I'm happy about that. We don't get as many page views as him, unfortunately. Next. We got coverage in Wired, and they actually did a very good ad about kind of how the sensibilities of the viewing public are changing, using us as an example. Next. We got coverage in some tech media. Next. And we got coverage in actually the advertising industry. This is the advertising industry journal, and I loved one of the quotes in this. If you can click, Daniel. Right, and I'll just read this quickly. Where the commercial lacks polish and makes up for it in heart, the bronies, although often ridiculed for their subculture, show the power of a connected, dedicated fan base. If only all fan groups were motivated to thank a brand for its impact on their lives, as well as be inspired to donate to charity on the brand's behalf. Right, so people seem to like the idea. And in fact, everything I've ever seen said that it was great to read the comments, because even the people who were really butthurt about the ad said, it didn't come out as bad as I thought it would, which I think, right, next. All right, so I just want to go back to this, because this, remember, was the thing that tweaked me the most. So let's talk about the good that didn't happen from here. Next. Right, Dan Gibson, the guy who did the editing, was actually able to get professional work. He had been working as a grocery bagger. The guy who did all that After Effects work for me because he couldn't get professional work. He's now doing professional video production work, partially as a result of having that ad in his portfolio. Next. Right, Arturo Fonseca, who is was at the time a music student down in Texas, got to work with William Anderson and work on again, a commercial that aired on TV. Next. Toys for Tots got $7,000, and they got the benefit of that ad. Next. And the fund was born. We've raised over $72,000. It's going to be more after this. We're about to endow a scholarship for animation. So I think we had just a little bit of good that came out of it. I want to mention one other piece of good, which is, this is your turn, Mackenzie. Tell about how getting to work with the fund has affected you.
Well, I'm 18, just out of high school, about to go to college, and at my age, I now have a published piece of artwork. I've designed the mascot for the fund, and I get to speak here at BronyCon. People are asking me for autographs, people are taking pictures with me, and it's kind of overwhelming in a really, really awesome way. And it wouldn't have happened if My Little Pony hadn't come along.
All right, so with that, if you can go next slide. We've got, I think, like a minute or two, so if there's any questions. Yes, sir.
All right, I remember I was one of those guys who said, I didn't say nothing good would come out of this,
Yeah.
but I was like, it feels kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So I would just like to say, we were wrong.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, the only nothing good could come out of this with the YouTube comments, with the homophobic YouTube comments once the full ad was shown on YouTube. Was that true?
Yeah, but you know something, if you go look at SciShow, or something else that's just really innocuous, they did an episode about lizards, and they'll get, oh, well, you're oh, well, you know. YouTube, there's no, I think you could put pictures of puppies frolicking on YouTube, and you'll get bad comments. It's just the nature of the beast. All right, well, in that case, thank you guys very much for coming.